Hi again. This is the 7th and final part of these modelling and visualization video course, and what we're going to do now is just look at how you deal with kind of trickier objects which have materials that are going in different directions. So we've got the fence here that's needing materials, so the direction of the wood, the grain in the wood would need to go sideways on the planks but vertically on the posts. Okay, so really it's better if you kind of split these objects into two parts. So we'll do that in the top view. If I select the fence object, so the posts and the planks are all combined at the moment. If we hide everything else, if you go to display, hide unselected, then we only have to deal with the one object. Go to the modify panel, and there's already a modifier sitting here ready to use, and this gets added whenever you bring models in from other software. It's not there with objects created in 3D Studio directly. So we want to edit mesh, and we want to work at the face level. So we want to isolate some of the triangles in the objects. So we go to the face level. If I zoom in closer, you'll see what happens. Okay, if I do a selection now, see it's picking, the objects are going red. Now it depends on the type of window that you're using. This one is the crossing window, that would select too much, it's taking the planks as well as the posts. So we want to use the window selection. Okay, if you hold Control, you can add to that selection. If you hold Alt, you can take away from that selection. So if you're careful with the direction that you're selecting, it's fairly easy to isolate the objects you're needing to grab. So I'm picking bigger strips now, so I'm taking in a lot more items. Okay, you have to be fairly careful. I've got to zoom in a bit closer at the corners to make sure I don't pick the end grain of the wood. Big selection down there. Zoom in at the corner. Oh, quite a twisted corner there. Right, okay. I understand what's happening there. Okay, take this. Now what we should have done with these fence posts actually is brought them in separately instead of with the rest of the model, because the objects are too small. They're smaller than 0.3 meters, so we're ending up with them getting distorted slightly. So I should have brought those in by themselves with a lower welding tolerance. You see, it's all kind of buckled quite badly actually. So I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to do this and do it right. So what I'm going to do is delete these fences. Okay, and I'm going to pull in just the fence from AutoCAD this time. So we'll switch off all the layers. Good for you to see this anyway. Okay, and I'm going to send this away as its own drawing. I'm just going to call it fences. Okay, select the objects. Oops, different selection there. It's going to go to the desktop. Okay. Back to 3D Studio, we'll bring in and import just those fences now. Fences. Okay, with the welding threshold, I'm going to put that down to 0. Okay, with no smoothing. Let's see what we get this time. Much better. Much better. Okay. Do the same again, select at the face level, Control, oops. Okay, bigger selections. that side. Corner ones are a little bit trickier to get, be a wee bit more careful. All the posts selected. So what I'm going to do is rename the original object to planks. Okay. I'm going to copy part of the name and detach these and create an object called posts. Fence posts. So I've got them separated now. So they're two separate objects. Okay. They haven't got any material on them. They've just been brought in fresh. So let's go to the materials editor and we'll just duplicate the grass one. Okay, we'll choose a different base colour. Okay, and a different picture to use here. Okay. So the wood material we'll use is this Ceregeria. Open. The size of the image is 1024 by 2048, so it's a 2:1 kind of ratio in vertical this time. Okay, let's pull that up. So you can see that the grain is going vertically on this one. So this is going to be usable for the posts. Okay. So go back to the parent level and we'll call this fence posts. Choose the fence post object if you can. Okay, assign the material. Okay, there's no sign of any mapping there yet. To modify that. Okay, you can see something's happening now. We're getting a smudge pattern because it's projecting it from the sky downwards. Okay, what we need is a box mapping. So that will project it from the sides as well, so it's starting to look a bit better, but it's a little bit too small. Real world map size equates to 1 by 1 by 1. We need 1 by 1 by 2. Okay, so you adjust this to 1 by 1 by 2. And that gives us this mapping icon that's kind of in the same direction as the as the material in the that we've added in the JPEG. Okay, now we can't use the same one on the side because it doesn't quite work for the mapping. So if you copy that and call it fence planks, okay, we make a slight adjustment to the material. Okay, so it's go to the picture, so everything's the same apart from one thing. Okay, in the mapping area, in the coordinates area, change the W to 90. So it turns the JPEG through 90 degrees. Okay, so the grain is now going sideways. So this is going to suit the plank direction. Okay, click on the planks, assign the material. Okay, we want to UVW map. Okay, it's box mapping again. Okay, it's not real world size. And this time it's 1 by 1 by 2. Oh, wrong way around. That's exactly what we had before. It's 2 by 2 by 1. 2 by 1. Okay, so that gives us a narrower, flatter box, and the grain is going in a more complementary direction. So we've got vertical grain on the posts, horizontal grain on the planks. Okay, a bit trickier. Remember to deselect the object to close the mapping, and we'll look at the roof now. So we want to bring back on, we want to unhide by name, let's hide. I want to unhide by name the roof surfaces. Okay. Click on this and we'll rename this to roof S. So this is going to be the south facing part of the roof. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll break stuff off this to become the other faces of the roof. Copy part of the name, modify the object, select at the triangle level, and I'm looking for the parts of the roof that are facing east. Okay, back to a crossing window. Okay, there's another triangle there, so you hold Control and pick triangles, detach those, add the letter E at the end of the name, so it's the roof east. Okay, those bits facing west are these, so detach those to west, and lastly the bits facing north are these. Detach those to the north facing portions. Okay, so if I look at the list of objects now, we've got east, north, west, and somehow I've managed to delete the name of the south facing one. So we'll put that back. List of objects, east, north, south, west. Okay, so we need a material to put on those. Probably safer to use the fence post one because it doesn't have the W rotated. So this is the slates. Okay, I'll give it a different colour to start off with, maybe orange. Okay, and we're changing the base colour. The base colour image, we'll change that to this picture of the slates. Going to go on all parts of the roof, so we can select all 4 objects and assign the material. Close the materials editor. If we look at the top viewport only now, zoom in on that, change it to default shading so we see what's happening, and we now need to apply and acquire mapping from one object to another. Select the south facing portion of the roof, modify, UVW map. Okay, real world is a bit too small. Okay, planar is okay, so we're projecting from the sky down, but 2 by 2. Okay, and what we'll do though is try and get the bottom edge of the picture in line with the bottom edge of the roof, the eaves. So you activate the mapping in that position and move the arrowhead down. You need to get in closer so we can see when we get the slates just touching the edge of the roof. Okay, close the UVW map, go to the next one round, add the UVW map modifier, but we'll acquire the material from the south roof. Acquire absolute. Otherwise you'll end up linking the objects together. Activate the mapping, move the icon nearer to where it's needed, and then rotate it through 90 degrees. Put your angle snap on, rotate through 90 degrees. Get in closer and move the mapping icon. So we're moving the icon, not the object. Deactivate UVW map, and we'll repeat that for the other 2 portions of the roof. Click on the next bit. Okay, go to UVW map, acquire, here, absolute, OK. Activate the mapping, move the icon, rotate the icon, zoom in closer and move it in more detail. Deactivate the mapping. And lastly, we've got the east side to do. UVW map, acquire. No mistake there, I've added mapping twice there. I have to delete that one. Okay, click on the east object first, UVW map, acquire from the north, absolute OK, activate the mapping, move the icon, rotate the icon, move it in more detail. Deactivate the object and the mapping, and that's just got a realistic sized slate texture on 4 different faces of the roof. It depends, you've got a trickier roof, you might have to break it into more parts than that. Okay, we'll bring back on everything that's hidden, so you hide the unselected objects. Sorry, unhide all, unhide all. Okay, if we do a test render now, we should find that the view is much gloomier than it was before, because there's a lot more objects bouncing different colours around now. There's a very quick test render there. Okay, a little finishing touch here, we could bring in some trees. So file, import, merge. Okay, I've got the trees on the USB drive. Got 2 trees in here. Select both of them and OK. Okay, and what we'll do is position them. Take one over this side. Okay, I'm going to copy them around the model to a few different places. So we instance them, and this keeps the file size down a bit. Here. Okay, try and add a bit of variation to these. If you rotate them different directions, so you get a bit of variation. Scale them as well, you can have different sizes. When you're scaling, don't use this strip, because that's just X and Y sizes. If you use the middle triangle, it's all 3 coordinates at the same time. What we need to do is check that the trees are actually stuck in the ground properly. So we need to check each tree, and using the blue axis you can tell where the grass and the base of the tree touch. Okay, so some will be higher than others. It's difficult to see, you need to rotate around a bit. Let's go full screen on that. The fence is kind of obscuring our view, so we're kind of having to move around a bit. Okay, that was okay. I haven't done that one yet. Okay, just pull them through. It's not too bad if the tree's stuck too far in the ground. It's when it's floating that it looks very silly. The tree floating out of the ground, it's not going to work very well at all. Okay, so that gives it a lot more depth. If you wanted to, you could put a tree in the foreground. So if we bring one over here, then it's going to cast shadows onto the rest of the model. So instead of an instance, this one will be a copy. Okay, because we want it to behave differently. If I right click the tree, go to Object Properties, I can allow the tree to cast shadows but be invisible to the camera. So it won't show up in the rendering. Okay, so it looks like it's blocking my view here, but it won't on the render. Okay, it'll cast shadows onto the ground. I'll maybe move that a bit further away so the shadow appears in this area. Okay, let's see what that looks like. The rendering will take a fair bit longer because we've got thousands and thousands of more triangles in the model now. But you can see the trees do add a lot more interest to the scene, and having these shadows cast in the foreground adds a heck of a lot of depth to it as well. It's easy to tell that these are model trees. There's too much of a pattern appearing within. This tree is probably a better one to use. We just need to rotate that a bit to adjust it. And we haven't let that render for very long, so it's not very high quality. But hopefully that's been useful. Thanks for taking the time to watch.